Gavin, we have a jam-packed show, but one thing I don't think either of us can resist reacting to is this absolutely appalling commentary from Megyn Kelly when she's talking to Batia Sargon or Batia Ungar Sargon, or I forget what this other crazy pants woman. She's like the MAGA communist lady that used to be on The Hills Rising. But it stood out to me really clearly, Gavin, because 2 days ago, the last time we were on air, I remember you being like, bro, there's nothing they could do. It's all 100% there. What are they possibly going to do? He's right there all over the Epstein files. How are they possibly going to deny it moving forward? And for Megyn Kelly to come out with this.
Batia Ungar Sargon, who's one of the least interesting, least charismatic, just most boring Zionist commentators out there. She always, wears her necklace to make sure everyone knows. But either way, she's just one of the cringiest Zionists. There's no war crime she won't defend. And yeah, let's take a look at this vile commentary from Megyn Kelly.
For Epstein, I've said this before, but just as a reminder, I do know somebody very, very close to this case who is in a position to know virtually everything. Not everything, but virtually everything. And this person has told me from the start, years and years ago, that Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-old girls. And I
for one, before we even get into like how disgusting it is to defend that, I'm pretty sure barely legal means that you are legal. Barely legal would imply like 18 years old. 15 years old ain't barely legal. That shit ain't legal at all. That is not legal. That's just being a pedophile. So, I mean, again, to say if he was really just into 18-year-olds, I guess you could say he was into the barely legal shit, but 15 is not barely legal. That's so crazy to say.
100%. If he was into the barely legal stuff, what he would be doing is he would be showing up at like sorority, campus type events at different colleges that he sponsored. And he would be going after those like college age girls who were like 18, 19 years old, and they are legally of age, but you're still a predator, gross douchebag if you go after them because, of the power dynamics and all of those kinds of things. And it's still creepy and gross no matter what. But that would be barely legal. And as long as there was like some sort of plausible consenting relationship, like he might have been paying the money, whatever, then I don't think that would be nearly the scandal that we're talking about. But 15 years old, as Gavin mentioned, I don't think that's legal in even the backwater southern states like Mississippi or Arkansas. I think it's 16 is the youngest age of consent in America, which I think is way too young. And I think if you're a grown man that has sex with a 16-year-old, you should fucking go to jail and we should put you on a sex criminal list 100%. But that would, I guess, be the like lowest interpretation of what the barely legal would be. Like, you could sleep with them legally and not go to jail. Like, I know Florida, it's like 16 or 17, something gross, right? But 15 years old, I don't think it's legal anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, like, she's acting like this is some huge shock. I don't know anyone that's out here saying that Jeffrey Epstein was raping 8-year-olds. Most of the victims and most of the people that are mentioned by the press are in that age range, around like the middle school to early high school age range. And apparently Jeffrey Epstein would literally, some of his the girls that would come massage him and stuff, some of them literally were right out of like middle schools in the area. But yeah, I haven't actually heard anyone claim that it was 8-year-olds, like from the Big Lebowski, Jesus, Quintana, 8-year-olds, dude, 8-year-olds. I haven't heard anyone say that, to be honest, about Epstein. Like, most people have been pretty specific about the age range of his victims, again, being in that like 14 to 16 kind of range. But either way, let's hear some more from Megyn Kelly, who really thinks she's, blown the lid right off this one.
Girls. And I realize this is disgusting. I'm definitely not trying to make an excuse for this. I'm just giving you facts. That he wasn't into like 8-year-olds, but he liked the very young teen types that could pass for even younger than they were, but would look legal to a passerby. And
also just no pushback whatsoever from Batia, who again is one of the most deranged Zionists on the entire internet. And a lot of people, pointed out how lots of Israeli society seems to be pretty pro pedophilia, pretty, okay with sexual abuse when it comes to certain victims. So it is interesting that she has no pushback for that. I mean, imagine you're on someone else's show and they start to say this shit about Jeffrey fucking Epstein of all people, who, by the way, almost certainly an Israeli asset. But either way, imagine she's just talking about anyone. Imagine she's talking about a preacher, like, some local teacher at a middle school or something that got arrested. Not Jeffrey Epstein, but again, just like some guy who taught 8th grade. Oh, he's not a pedophile. All the girls he was going after, they were only 14. he's not a pedophile. I don't know why all these parents in the area are so up in arms. He was just trying to take one of his students out on a date, but she was barely legal. It's not like she was literally a child. It's not like she was a toddler. I mean, this guy's not a monster. He's 38. She was 14. What's the big deal? I mean, imagine listening to that and not giving some serious pushback and being like, yo, dude, maybe you want to say there's a distinction between someone who prays after an 8-year-old and a 15-year-old, but they're still a fucking pedophile.
Yeah, my only way to wrap my mind around how this is something that she could authentically believe, right? Because I think the most likely situation is she's just finding some way to defend Donald Trump and to defend his association with Jeffrey Epstein. And so now she's trying to defend Jeffrey Epstein. But let's say for a moment, this is her legitimate belief system. It does seem like it would be warped by like some serious Christian fundamentalism where it's like, oh, you're like bringing back the era of child brides. Which if that becomes normalized in our society, like it's very scary, right? Like the leap that she's taking with her audience unopposed by Bhatia right here, right? It's very scary if that ever became politically normalized, right? Because then you could see an era where people would normalize having a bride that's 16 years old, having child wives again. In the South, that was a thing that was happening 100 years ago. Right now, that could be brought back again. And that's another thing that I think is really scary about how the conservative right wing in this country may decide to defend Donald Trump's blatant association with Jeffrey Epstein is to go with this line that Megyn Kelly's offering here, which is that, oh, it's actually not that weird to want to have sex with a 15-year-old.
Yeah. Not if you're Emmanuel Macron's wife. But all right, let's watch the rest of this.
I believed, and that was what I reliably was told for many years. And it wasn't until we heard from Pam Bondi that they had tens of thousands of videos of alleged, forgive me, they used to call it kiddie porn. Now they call it child sexual abuse material on his computer. That for the first time, I thought, oh, no, he was an actual pedophile. I mean, only a pedophile gets off on young children abuse videos. She's never clarified it. I don't know whether it's true. I have to be honest. I don't really trust Pam Bondi's word on the Epstein matters anymore. Yeah, so I don't know what's true about him, but we have yet to see anybody come forward and say, I was I was under 10. I was under 14.
That's the bar.
When I first came within his purview. Look,
she says under 10 and then she edits it to under 14. So which is it? Is it anything over 14 is okay or anything over 10? Like what the fuck is this line that you're drawing? This is so fucking random. And again, I don't understand why she has to jump on this grenade. Obviously you're right. It's to protect Donald Trump, who's implicated and was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein. But I don't know, man. It just seems like a weird time to do this when a lot of her colleagues, people like Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes, are straight up declaring that MAGA is dead because of the fact that he's been protecting this pedophile and the fact that he is a pedophile. Like a lot of people in Megyn Kelly's orbit are basically ripping off the Band-Aid right now. So maybe she's just preparing to do that and is kind of, trying to acclimate her audience a little bit at a time to ultimately come to that position. Do you think she eventually will straight up throw Trump under the bus, or do you think she's really going to be in this for the long haul defending his pedophilia?
Well, it's crazy because I thought, again, it was 2 days ago, we were reacting to her having to come out and clarify that Ben Shapiro had lied to her face during one of her live shows about Candace Owens and said that, Ben Shapiro claimed that Candace Owens had blamed or said that Erica Kirk had some involvement in Charlie's assassination. And Megyn Kelly was like, I was flabbergasted by that. But obviously in a live show, you don't have any real way to fact check someone, right? So she's like, oh, I'll take Ben Shapiro at his word because he's the guest and we're doing this live show. And then she has to come out and clarify that that was incorrect. And we were both talking about how it seemed like, okay, she got chewed out by Tucker Carlson when she tried to woke scold him. Now she's backtracking and now she's kind of siding with Candace and making it seem like, okay, like I am going to distance myself from Ben Shapiro's sinking ship. We've talked to you guys a ton about how the Daily Wire is completely chopped. It's cooked. It's over. It will never have the relevance that it once had again, no matter what happens. And Ben Shapiro likely will also never have the relevance.
Unless they can sign Nick Fuentes to the Daily Wire, that would maybe bring back some of their relevance.
Something tells me they don't have enough money on credit to get Nick Fuentes. I bet he's rolling in the dough right now. He was talking about how he has 55,000 live viewers every time he goes live.
And he's on Manect now with all the PPD grifters.
Exactly. And all these crazy ass people that would just pay him like, $500 to send a text message to him. So I'm sure he's really hard to buy at this point. But I heed your point. They would have to do something really dramatic. And so I thought, okay, Megyn Kelly is reading the tea leaves, right? She sees the writing on the wall, and she also is starting to understand, okay, well, with Epstein, with the economy crashing, with all these things, you have to be on the side of the Republican Party that's throwing bombs at the establishment. MAGA is now the establishment. I thought she was at least savvy enough to negotiate that. When I watched this clip, I was like, I don't know. This seems like a big backpedal from that. This seems like she can't make up her mind. She's trying to talk out of both sides of her mouth. She wants to join the Nick Fuentes. She wants to join the Candace Owens. She wants to maintain relevance, but she also doesn't want to lose whatever part of her base or her financial sponsorship or whatever connections she has to the Republican core that she knows would be compromised by calling out Donald Trump directly or taking big shots at MAGA, something that Donald Trump would take personally.
Yeah. Just disgusting, though. I mean, even though we've reacted to it now a couple of times, even just rereading this quote, there's a difference between a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old. Like, yeah, first of all, no fucking shit. Again, no one is actually accusing Jeffrey Epstein. I haven't seen anyone accusing Epstein of fucking 5-year-olds. But even with that said, it's still a goddamn pedophile. I can't imagine trying to make this distinction and like be like, oh, there's a tier list of pedophiles. The ones up here, we can look the other way. The ones down here, no, straight to jail. Like, bro, a pedophile is a fucking pedophile. And again, if you're a grown man preying on middle school girls, that's crazy. That's fucking insane. So genuinely just one of the craziest quotes ever, honestly. And again, Batya just sitting here nodding along with no pushback. That might be the craziest thing about this. Because again, I'm on a fucking show with someone. I don't care whose show it is. I don't care if it's a bigger show than mine. They start defending fucking pedophilia and being like, well, technically, she was 14, not 8. I'd be like, bro, that's the easiest W ever. You just get to stand there and be like, I'm against that. I'm above it. And you get to be loud and like, why don't you do that, Batya? How do you let this fucking happen? This is so crazy. I genuinely can't believe it.
You brought it up earlier. I remember, I don't know if it was on air or not, but I saw a map of Tel Aviv, and it was like all of the registered sexual offenders that were there. And it really, it will blow your fucking mind, because I went in there, I was like, this seems like a talking point. This seems like, hey guys, I love criticizing Israel for everything that's real, but me, enlightened guy over here, I'm like, that sounds like anti-Semitism. Let me go ahead and investigate that. And I was like, holy shit, there are a lot of fucking pedophiles and registered sex offenders in Tel Aviv. And not only that, people who are sex offenders in America who have moved to Israel because they know they'll be softer on them there. I mean, it is a real crazy phenomenon.
That's why Epstein hung out with so many Israeli top officials.
And was almost 100% Mossad. Part of these emails confirmed that he was brokering agreements internationally and all that kind of stuff. And Gavin, I know we don't want to hang too much longer on the Epstein emails, but there was one thing that I just couldn't help but consider when I saw this guy over here. And that was a depressing piece of news. Now, I've been sus about this man for a long time. All right. Ever since he told Gavin whatever he thought about anarchy was irrelevant. I was like, I don't know, man. No, I'm kidding, obviously. But this was a real bummer to read about. And I thought Glenn put it really well here. He said, the obvious affection and intense friendship Chomsky had with Jeffrey Epstein is truly baffling and hard to reconcile with everything else one knows about Chomsky. But this letter is in Chomsky's own words and leaves no doubt about the depths of their friendship. Jacob Silverman points out that he regarded a highly valued friend, Jeffrey Epstein. So, and then here's the actual letter. I met Jeffrey Epstein half a dozen years ago, blah, blah, blah. And it's from Noam Chomsky, the man himself.
We've been in regular contact ever since. Yeah, I wonder why. That's pretty sus. Yeah, I've been in regular, but not for that reason. No. We just loved playing chess together. Trust me, bro. I had no idea. It is a real bummer. Obviously, I love Noam Chomsky. His work speaks for itself. I'm not saying that you should like throw your copy of Manufacturing Consent in the trash or whatever, but it is really sus. And it's also, unfortunate because we already found out that Epstein had been, brokering meetings between Chomsky and Woody Allen, who was obviously also a huge Chomsky associate. Woody Allen and Noam Chomsky were, based on all available information, pretty freaking good friends. In fact, in the same birthday book that included the letter from Trump, there's a really weird letter from Woody Allen that honestly blows the Trump letter out of the water as far as how crazy it is. And he's talking about like how him and his wife would regularly attend the Jeffrey Epstein parties, and before his wife intervened, the food there was always terrible. It would just be a huge platter of like takeout Chinese food. But then apparently Woody Allen's wife, Suni Previn, who he married when she was like 18, and the adopted daughter of his then wife Mia Farrow, she intervened and was like, come on, Jeffrey, let's get some decent fucking food options in here. Like, if we're going to come to your goddamn parties all the time, could you at least have the decency to put out some good food for us? So you can really see some interesting insight into this weird world of elites, this like Eyes Wide Shut style fucking cadre of villains and famous people. And honestly, people that you would hope are not in that crowd, people like fucking Noam Chomsky. You're like, what the fuck? What were you doing here, bro?
Yeah, the first time my eyebrow was really raised about Noam Chomsky was when he responded to the allegations about flying with Jeffrey Epstein, and they went to a Woody Allen concert, and he was like, I'm unaware of any need to apologize for spending the evening with a fantastic artist. And I was like, you're going to say that about Woody Allen in 2022? Are you sure, bro? The guy married his fucking daughter. Okay, I get adopted daughter. Still weird as fuck. Right? Still absolutely insane. And also, Gavin, I've never brought this up because I've never, had any reason to besmirch the great legacy of Noam Chomsky. But going your whole life without a drop of alcohol, a puff of marijuana, I don't know. I start to wonder about you. You have to get your rocks off somehow. Lord knows we hoped it would be some other way than this.
Yeah, no, that is true. There is a certain stereotype about those straight edge people. It's like, I don't indulge in any vices except for this one thing that I'm going to not tell anyone about. It's like, oh yeah, what's that? What's that? What you're so into behind the scenes that you don't want anyone to know about? I don't know. Obviously, I'm joking. Lots of people are totally straight edge and sober, and they're not freaking, freaks in the, or whatever. But either way, there is some truth to that. But yeah, pretty crazy shit to watch all this Epstein stuff become public, to watch Republicans try to deal with it. All these freaking, MAGA people like Megyn Kelly who have really hitched her wagon. And that's the other thing I was thinking about, guys. Like, I know it's a cliche to say this about everything that happens to Donald Trump, but could you fucking imagine Megyn Kelly's reaction if news broke circa 2009 that Barack Obama had multiple sexual encounters with 15-year-olds. I'm just saying, what do you think she'd be taking this line about, oh, well, they're just, it's not really pedophilia if they're 15. Yeah, that's barely legal. What's the problem? Could you fucking imagine? Because I remember Megyn Kelly from that era when she was on Fox News. She was talking about how not only Santa Claus is white, but Jesus is white. Like, she was fucking hysterical.
She was racist as fuck. She still is, but yeah.
She still is. But could you imagine if the news broke that Barack Obama had multiple sexual affairs or encounters with fucking quote unquote barely legal chicks, 15, 14-year-olds? Could you fucking imagine? She would never have shut the fuck up. She would have tried to start the biggest moral panic the country had ever seen. And obviously that would have been a very valid reason to criticize Barack Obama. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been, but I'm just saying, can you fucking imagine for a second her gaslighting the audience about it if the roles were reversed?
Oh, of course not. And not only that, she would be using the most hateful, racist, inflammatory. I mean, she would be inciting violence against black men across the country. It would be a scandal. I mean, you can't even fathom it. It's unthinkable the amount of leeway that the Republican Party is willing to give to Donald Trump. And at this point, you're right, it's almost a moot point. It's like, yep, that's what they're going to do no matter what. At this point, we know for sure, no matter what. Gavin and I met each other when we were 10 years old. I have a very clear image of what a 10-year-old child looks like. Right? What a 10-year-old child is. I remember being 10. I was in Mrs. Abramovich's class. I was really excited because it was the first time I felt like I was really, really paying attention to an election cycle, right? Because I was a fucking nerd, okay? And I remember it very vividly, right? And I remember how young and youthful and how I didn't even have any of my own ideas. I was just a regurgitating fax machine of whatever my dad and my grandpa had said about the news, okay? So you're not clear. Like, just you're such a little individual. You're such an infant, right? It goes without saying. To be talking about making excuses for someone even a handful of years older than that, having sexual intercourse with a grown man, a billionaire, like, you are disgusting. You are dirt. You are lower than low. It's abominable. I can't even think about how far we've fallen as a society that this woman and her co-host are both considered somewhat mainstream commentators, that there are people who will go on to a mainstream cable news show and make very similar points.
Yeah, it's genuinely crazy. Luckily, I did see almost nothing but mockery and backlash towards that specific clip. Like, I didn't even see a lot of Republicans or Trump fans defending that. So I doubt we're going to hear that one again. That excuse, oh, they're just 15 and barely legal.
I wouldn't be
bro.
surprised, man. I mean, they went on Fox News and said that we should just kill homeless people.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I meant specifically for Megyn Kelly. I'm sure that some people will, continue to stoop to those lows to defend Donald Trump. I mean, the press secretary, people like that are going to have to come up with some creative excuses pretty soon because, the dirt is coming out, shit is dropping. But yeah, I mean, it's genuinely crazy to see. It's disgusting.
Yep.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir.